All right, Mr. Smack, well, thanks for being with us today. I have a couple questions. I'm going to start off talking about the economy. Obviously, we have inflation going on. Currently, there's been a housing crisis. A lot of people are hurting in their pocketbook. What is your economic plan for this country?
Well, the first thing that I know that we need to get done is we need to get the Bush tax cuts made permanent. That's going to become a tax increase here in another couple of years if they're not made permanent. The second thing I would propose, and one thing that I would sponsor immediately upon taking office as a congressman, would be propose repealing the gas tax for a minimum of 1 year.
Okay.
And that would save folks about 18 cents a gallon, and in this day and age, any savings is going to be a help. Mm-hmm. The next thing we need to start addressing is our monetary policy. Mm-hmm. The thing that's driving inflation right now is not necessarily, I mean, yeah, the cost of things are going up, but that's not, nobody has any real understanding as to why that's happening. The main reason why is because of our weak U.S. dollar.
Right.
Our dollar is weak because we really have nothing to back it up with except for the good faith of the federal government. Mm-hmm. And we need to look at a return to the gold standard or a silver standard or something of that nature in order to shore up our currency to once again make it the strongest currency in the world. Mm-hmm. And that will, in effect, drive inflation right out the door and take that right off the table, which will bring the prices of everything back under control again.
All right. Do you think that we need to cut any spending?
I do. Spending is definitely something that is absolutely out of control in the federal government. Mm-hmm. I think that spending, basically sending money overseas to different governments in Ethiopia, Sudan, Egypt. Do you recognize right now that we're building a border fence for Egypt on the border of Egypt and the Gaza Strip? Wow. We're building that border fence, and it's nice to know that the American taxpayer is footing the bill for that border fence, so the Egyptian people can be protected from the terrorists coming over from the Gaza Strip. This is just unnecessary spending in this day and age. We just can't afford to be doing this anymore.
Right. Where do you stand on the Second Amendment?
I'm going to be a gun owners advocate on the Second Amendment. I think that the Brady bill is a piece of legislation that was a feel-good piece of legislation when it got passed, and I think that it needs to be repealed. I don't think it's effective. I don't think it's something that's really stopping somebody from getting a gun if they really want to get a hold of one and do harm to people. I think that we need to strengthen concealed carry. I think we need to strengthen those laws. I mean, that should be carried out primarily by the states, but I think that it should be encouraged by the federal government to strengthen concealed carry laws. The more responsible people that have guns, the less gun crime there's going to be. Mm-hmm. I think also that we need to look at basically getting out of the United Nations as well because of their policy on gun ownership. They don't want to see any private gun ownership, and I think that the United Nations is going to push against us on our Second Amendment rights, and I think that should be discouraged, and I think part of discouraging that would be to remove ourselves from the United Nations entirely.
And speaking of the United Nations, where do you stand on national sovereignty? Is that an important issue to consider?
Absolutely. I mean, our Constitution is the law of the land, and we want to be a sovereign government onto our own. Right. I don't think we should be forcing our values onto other governments, but I think that we should be certainly a sovereign entity onto our own, and I think that's being threatened right now, not only from within the federal government, but also from the steady tide of illegal immigrants coming through from the southern border.
What would you do about illegal immigration?
First thing we need to do is secure the southern border. We need to secure that with a fence, and then we actually need to physically put troops there.
Okay.
We need to make sure that our southern border is absolutely secured. The second thing we need to do once the southern border is secured is we need to take away all incentives for illegal immigrants to stay in this country. We need to take away free education. We need to take away the free health care. We need to take away Social Security benefits. We need to take away birthright citizenship. Basically make it basically a land where if you're going to come in and you're going to jump the fence at night, it's not a land that you're really going to be welcome. We need to roll up the welcome mat for the illegal aliens, but at the same time, we need to make sure that we are still extending the welcome mat to those that come here legally, that go through the proper channels, that obtain a green card or a work visa or a consular permit or something like that. And those folks should be welcomed with open arms. That's part of what our country was built on.
Right. Where do you stand on the Patriot Act?
I'm against the Patriot Act. I think that it's a gross overstepping of bounds. I think it's completely unconstitutional. I think it intrudes on too many people's rights.
Should it be repealed?
Absolutely.
Okay. What about medicinal marijuana?
I think medicinal marijuana is a states' rights issue. I think that each state should be able to determine whether they allow medicinal marijuana or whether they don't allow medicinal marijuana. And I think that if a state votes in favor of medicinal marijuana, then the federal government should recognize that as the law in that state. And I don't think that the federal government should be overstepping their bounds and enforcing federal drug policy for folks that have a prescription for using marijuana for different ailments.
Where do you stand on? Where do you stand? Do you believe we need to eliminate the Department of Education or any other governmental departments?
I think we need to move toward eliminating the Department of Education and also eliminating No Child Left Behind. I think that the education system in this country is not functioning properly because it's too much top-down from the federal government. I think that the control of education needs to be returned to the states and to local entities and local governments in order to provide for the best education for our children. I think that if we have more local control, more state control, less federal control, it's always going to be better for our children in the long run.
Okay. Where do you stand on abortion?
I believe that life begins at conception. I am against abortion personally, and I would be against stem cell research, using stem cells for any kind of medical research.
Right. Do you see abortion as a states' rights issue, or do you believe that it should be from the federal government?
I think that it should be a states' rights issue. I think that each state should be able to determine abortion law on their own.
Do you have any ideas for fixing our healthcare system?
I think that the problems within the healthcare system would only be amplified if the federal government tried to take it over. I think that we'd end up waiting for care and having an awful lot of unnecessary spending on something that the free market can honestly control. The free market can honestly control the healthcare in this country and be able to have things like physicians negotiating their rates with the insurance companies and that. I'm not really a big fan of the HMO system. I think that was a federal mandate that didn't necessarily have to happen. I think that more free market, more staying with our Constitution, and less the federal government trying to run everything, the better.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for being with us today, Mr. Smack.
All right.
Wish
Thank
you all
you.
the best.
All right.